This place is designed and owned by a man named Tyler Hayes. He's from Oregon, and then he moved to New York about over 20 years ago to be an artist and sculptor. And he's from the middle of nowhere, Oregon, and he didn't grow up with a lot of things. So basically it's completely homegrown. It soaked up everything that was kind of where he was, nature, things that his mom brought back from the market, shaker furniture, Amish, and anything that he could absorb. This is his latest project. It's called M.Crow. He took over a general store in Oregon where he grew up. That was the only store in his neighborhood, and he had to save it from going bankrupt, and under that guise he started making his lifestyle section after being extremely successful. And he's using clay from Oregon. This is the wild clay, making ceramics, to using upholstery fabric. BDW is known, it's an acronym. I mean, originally it was kind of a funny play on a chimney that he saw in Brooklyn, but after starting an archery team, which he did because he used to make bows and arrows, it stands for Bury Your Dead Downwind. So bury is a very important word for us. In his studio, he likes to employ the most knowledgeable artisans, but also everyone has a master's degree in his studio. There's scientists as well who know a lot about chemistry. This is called an oxidation process. So he knows which chemicals are going to make the gray come out from the tannins of the wood. So it's not toxic because he's all about sustainability. That when you put it on, it gives that smooth finish, but it's not toxic. Within the studio, Tyler, he specializes in metal, which you see with the bronze poles and casted bronze legs, but also he does his own tanning as well. So the leather, he has a leather department within his studio, and then a wood department, and then also ceramics. So this is an example of what he does with leather, and it's completely wrapped in leather. You see the stitchings that are also kind of iconic of his style. The bronze poles in natural bronze is hand etched by him and his team. Each one is completely different. This is called our Lake series. It comes with these drop pools. They look like metal, but it's actually ebony. So to the touch, it's warm. You would think they're cold, but they're warm. So we collaborate with a few friends who are also makers, and that's Apparatus. So that specific one is Apparatus. Lindsay Adelman, who's a great friend of his, and a few more. Natalie Page are those pendants that have been just completely charming pendants that she makes in upstate New York, Hudson.
Store we've had for, I guess, 5 years now. I used to sell through a gallery in Chelsea, and there was a point where I felt like I wanted to sort of stretch my wings and do my own thing. The shop in Brooklyn was always manufacturing, it's machinery, and it's much more about the making of stuff. Where this was much more about presenting what it is we develop, and yeah, just sort of like actually creating a sort of a finer, more polished version of the public-facing aspect of the business. Well, I was in painting and sculpture at art school. I worked for a jeweler for a while. So that kind of clarified sculpture to a product. And lighting was just sort of the right scale. It was like, it wasn't furniture, it wasn't like big and complicated. And it allowed you to make objects. But in the end, it's been great. I mean, it's very much sculpture in the sense that these are all, free, loose joints just by gravity holding them together. Turn that, and this will go up and down. And you can set this in different places. And I love that this is like just a ring on a hook. It's not complicated, it's not mechanized. Initially we do everything. We do a chandelier, 3 versions, standing lamp, desk lamp, and try to hit all the categories. But with this location having the opportunity to open and close and show new things any day of the week.
Could you describe the relationship of Americans and, well, their furniture and objects that they buy?
That has evolved a lot over the last 10 or 20 years. It used to be, IKEA, or, that was the most modern thing that existed. And yeah, I mean, used to be, it used to be kind of progressive to go shop at Korea. But then, at least in New York, it's evolved a great deal. And now it's much more sort of compelling and interesting work. I think the U.S. had to go through the process where they had to digest the European brands. Because when I started, there was no one even went to Milan. Nobody even sort of were interested in anything outside the U.S., which in the end was like shaker furniture or traditional styles or overstuffed couches. But now I think the U.S. is on its own kind of trajectory. It feels like it's very much its own style.
We represent a lot of brands, and we also have our own brand, which is Matter Made, and we're Brooklyn based. So our studio's in Brooklyn. Most of the pieces, a lot of the lights that you see in here is all made in Brooklyn. And what we do is we do collaborations with established designers, for example, Faye Too Good, Luca Niceto, Philippe Malouin, Pedro, who's a Brazilian designer, Jonah Takagi, Anna Crass. So a lot of them are up and coming, and then we do small collaborations. Jamie Gray, who's the founder and owner of Matter, he's very particular with the way that he curates the collection and who he works with. And you can always submit a portfolio, but if it's going to be accepted or not, then that's really up to him. New York has a very broad range of style. It can be from extremely American classic to very, very modern, or even a blend. Because it's a big city and there's a concentration of different cultures here.
Our owners decided to open a store in Tribeca, and they had some relationships with some designers in the design world in Europe, so they brought them over, leveraged that to meet some other design. 2 years is a big focus on contemporary furniture, and that's really what we've been focusing on.
Tell me about how do New Yorkers perceive you? Do they have a certain opinion?
Over the last 2 years, we've really become a go-to destination, design destination for the interior design world. They see us as a valid option for residential interiors, for commercial interiors, and that's really what we've been focused on as well. The majority of those 20 brands are contemporary furniture brands, but we still represent a few very important accessory brands, which would be Aubach, Lobmeyer, and Allgarten. So these three manufacturers have a very strong history, centuries old history in the European market, and we I guess we represent to their cult following in the US. Table by Artisan, a manufacturer out of Bosnia. Tables and chairs by Tone, a manufacturer out of Czech Republic. So even though we represent some larger brands like E15, like Tone, we represent a lot of smaller manufacturers as well. A lot of designers who may not have a connection to the US market or have the reach or the scale to represent themselves in the US. We take on the big manufacturers, we take on the small manufacturers. We don't discriminate on size. The Bullenberg is a very important manufacturer in our collection. That is a studio based in Berlin. They have this one table that's produced from wood that is sourced from their family farm or their family forest, and they literally just produce this one table, and they do it very well. It's a very strong, solid oak table. Atkim would be another brand that is small. They have a small collection of, they call it activist furniture because it's very interactive. It's a collection of a chair, a dining chair, a lounge chair, a bench, and a stool, and the idea is to create a fun experience with the furniture. So this chair, it has a dining version, it has a lounge version. I would say it's a 20-30 minute chair. You sit in this chair, you enjoy yourself for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but you're not gonna fall asleep in this chair. And it's all made to order, so the conversation starts between 10 and 16 weeks, but this is what I always tell my clients. It starts between 10 and 16 weeks. That's standard lead time for items for you to place the order and items to arrive to your space or your client's space. That said, if that's not fast enough, ask me, and maybe we can do something better.